Good afternoon, ladies. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to give it a couple of minutes. Let all those who registered join us. Let me know that you can hear me in the chat, those who have so far. Make sure we cover all technical difficulties up front. Thank you, Cecilia. Looks like I'm loud and clear. Going to give it a couple more moments. Let us know where you're joining us from today, and thank you so much for being here. We've got someone from California. Thank you, Evelyn. Where are you today, Donna, my friend and traveler? I figured as much. Thank you, Donna. Donna's joining us from Cincinnati, Ohio today. Again, we're just taking a couple of moments to make sure everyone gets on. And while we're letting everyone know where we're joining from today in the chat. All right, so why don't we get started? Keep the conversation going while you're joining us. And good afternoon. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me to learn more about turning chaos to order and downsizing your paper documents. Freeing yourself from clutter and going from a space of chaos to one of order is a journey, to say the least. There comes a point of time in which you decide that you've collected too much stuff. Usually, this is when you feel ready to clean up your home and downsize the heaps of clothing and other household goods that are strewn throughout your bedrooms, living room, bathrooms, kitchen, attic, and home office. One of the most universal forms of clutter found all over the home is paper. The route over the mountains of paper clutter is fairly straightforward. However, this journey takes more patience, more endurance, and more courage than any other category of downsizing. So today, I want to walk you through the processing of papers that currently inspire chaos in your home. During this webinar, learn how to turn that chaos into order by downsizing and moving your mountains of paper to a clutter-free environment that includes a file cabinet, or two, a data management system, and an inbox. This webinar will be recorded, and I will be writing a series of blog posts that will include much more detail that you can use as a guide when you tackle your paper chaos. So stay tuned to our Facebook page and the Organized Haven blog tomorrow through the coming weeks. And as we go through this webinar, please leave questions in the Q&A section, and we'll cover those at the end. And again, keep the conversation going. You may find that you relate with something that I say. Please share that with all of us, and let's move on through. So my name is Nicole Ramer. I'm a certified professional organizer, a certified senior move manager, and the founder of Organized Haven. We are an A+ accredited moving, downsizing, and home organizing company serving Polk County seniors, their families, and busy professionals since 2013. I started my organizing company when I was in an overwhelming transition myself. I worked an hour away from home, 50, 60-hour weeks. It was a small home, only 880 square feet, with absolutely no storage and just an exorbitant amount of accumulations, having just became a new mom. My son was a year old at the time, and we've experienced so many transitions here at Organized Haven since that day in April of 2013. First was my husband Danny joining me on this journey in 2016. He's also a certified senior move manager and the co-owner of Organized Haven. We have a team of professional organizers, senior move managers, and relocation specialists. We're trained and experienced members of the National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals, NAPO for short, and NASM, the National Association of Senior and Specialty Move Managers. We're NASM at Home specialists as well, helping seniors age in place in their very own Organized Haven. You can learn more about us at organizedhaven.com. So here's a quick list of the things that we're going to cover today. The topics will be analyzing your current paper processing system. Second, creating a strategy to organize your papers and your zones. And then taking action and tackling your paper clutter. So before we get started, I'd like to know how overwhelmed you are with your paper clutter. If you can just let me know in the chat. I don't have these polls that I can see here. I think I failed to get them created. So there's technical difficulty number one. So again, just let me know in the chat if you feel overwhelmed or anxious about your paper clutter. Corinne says moderately. She is north of Indianapolis today. I don't see anyone here from Florida yet. So that's where I am here in Lakeland, Florida. Evelyn, you're a little bit overwhelmed. Okay, very good. Donna, she has lots of paper. She saves just about everything that is financial related. Well, that is not a bad thing. But yes, it accumulates quickly, doesn't it? All right, so just keep that going and we'll move on. Stormy, she's joining us also from Lakeland today. Thanks, Stormy. All right, and Shirley, you are extremely overwhelmed. All right, well, you're in the right place. All of you are. We all have clutter problems in our home, and like I said, paper is usually on that list. So thank you for being open and honest and sharing your situation. How do you know when to throw it away? We're going to cover some of that today, and the blog will go in extreme detail as to that. So thank you for that question. All right, so for those of you who are extremely stressed or even moderately, this image should resonate with you. Clutter is like a magnet. Put a pile down on a flat surface, and the next thing you know, there are 3 piles. Simply put, clutter inspires more clutter. It's no wonder why it causes so much stress. Setting up a working paper processing system requires that you first analyze your current paper processing system. And yes, I can hear you now. Nicole, what paper processing system? And you may not think that you have one, but you do. Whether it works or not is the question. So here is how to analyze your system. And I've prepared some examples for each of these questions. So let's start with what's working. That's the first question you're going to want to ask yourself. So example number 1. My catalogs all live on this bookshelf in my home office. I toss out the old one as soon as the new one comes in. It's nice to know I can get my hands on the most up-to-date issue in a second. Example number 2, I file important mail into my to-do inbox, to pay inbox, or into its easily retrievable file in the file cabinet right away after pulling the mail from the mailbox. It takes no more than 5 minutes of my time, and the mail never piles up. That's awesome. Example number 3. In lieu of keeping a ton of cookbooks, I look up and store recipes online. My cookbooks used to take up an entire kitchen cabinet that I now use for the things that I actually use. Does anybody relate to those examples of what is working? share that there. And if you have some others, your input is going to help others that are on this webinar today. So share in the chat if any of those are relatable to you, or if there's anything else that you're doing now that is working in terms of your current paper processing system. Okay. Now, what's not working? Example number 1, I'm constantly losing things in my home office. Usually it's a bill that ends up being late or a document I need quickly. My papers are cluttered into piles and I never have enough time to organize them. I know that this is relatable for probably everyone on this webinar today. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Example number 2, my kitchen table is often cluttered with mail and other papers that my family brings inside the house daily. Half of it is junk, and the other half needs immediate attention that it never gets. I'm on my own in my household when it comes to thinking things need to change. And I know that's the case too for not just the paper in your homes. And it's so hard to get everybody on the same page and following your system. We'll talk about that later. Example number 3, my home office has become difficult to get to over the years. I have to go upstairs to get there, and it is excessively cluttered. I keep the daily mail and incoming paperwork by my chair in the living room, which is also consistently cluttered. We experience this in almost every senior's home that we work with who either has a multi-level home or is finding themselves spending most of their time in one room. Usually it is the living room. All right, I'm going to just check out the chat before we move on to number 3 and see if anyone had anything extra to share. Donna sorts mail away over the trash and she tries e-statements. Yes, that's one thing I've not even put together in this webinar is the alternative of trying e-statements, but you know, that's what people do today. E-statements and autopay to avoid those late fees too. Let's see, Shirley says her cookbooks are her problem. They were her mom's. Yes, we see that a lot. And Shirley, do you use those cookbooks? So that's usually a sign if you're not using them that maybe you just need to consider what's holding you back from letting them go and solve that problem if you're not using it. Corinne, she sorts mail as soon as she gets it. Yes, definitely. Perfect. Thank you guys so much for staying engaged on the chat. All right, so number 3, which items are most essential to you and the people using your system? Because often it's not just us. Again, that family is causing some problems. So example 1 I'm going to share is David and Shirley. They needed an effective space in their home that their entire family could use for managing household finances and homeschooling their children. This space needed to have workstations for varying tasks and people. So you can see with others using the space that workspaces needed to be established to make it effective for all of whom is using that space. Example number 2, Mary needed a home office space that had a locking door, good lighting, and everything in its place for quick retrieval during pop-up Zoom meetings and conference calls. She had a home-based business and was the only one who used the space, but often faced interruptions from her kids. If any of you have joined me before in meetings on Zoom, you are probably thinking, Nicole, you replaced your name with Mary's because that sounds like you. And yes, a locking door would be great. And I don't have that capability. I may very well put some curtains up though, so the kids aren't tempted to come in when I'm on a meeting. There's always options. And your job is never done, even as a professional organizer. Example number 3, before we move on to the 4th question, is Sarah. She was a retired CPA who worked out of her home most of her career. She had 10 four-drawer file cabinets full of her clients' tax documents. It was time to downsize and move to a senior living community, and she hasn't accessed these documents in decades. And I see this a lot with what I do. Clients who owned their own business, who had long since retired, and still are concerned about what to do with those documents, if they need to be saved, and how to safely do that. See if there's anything new in the chat. Corinne says, knowing what she can throw away seems complicated. She Googles it, but gets many articles and can't read them all. Understandable. Well, hopefully I can, hopefully, Corinne, you will plan to keep an eye on that Facebook page and our blog for the upcoming blog post that's going to detail what you can throw away and when. Also, before I forget, know that those of you in attendance live today are going to get access to files that will help you, the ultimate guide to managing a move. But there are paper-related documents within, so definitely register for that when you receive that link. All right, so let's see. I think we're to number 4. Why do you want to get organized? The why is so important. It's what every type of organizing project should start with. And so I'm going to share several examples with you today. Example 1, we will be able to use the living room again because my work area will be separated from it. Example 2, uninterrupted peace and quiet during work hours. Example 3, I'll have more room to work and get more done. 4, better access to project notes, files, and idea starters so I can grow my business as I want to. Number 5, I won't be anxious all the time that I am forgetting something. Are any of these resonating yet? Let us know in the chat. Number 6, bills will be paid on time. I'll stop wasting money on late fees and finance charges. Very, very important, especially with all of the rising costs today, that if our bills are getting paid late, that if we're getting late fees, that we really need to assess our paper processing system and how to make sure that those things aren't happening anymore. The e-statements, like Donna said, is a really great way to make sure the papers aren't piling up and getting you into situations of overwhelm and what feels like an impossible task, but also establishing auto pay and budgeting and making sure that there's enough funds in your account at the time of that withdrawal so that you also avoid overdraft fees. But that's a whole nother webinar. Maybe we'll do at another time. 2 more examples for question number 4 are, I'll have reduced tension caused by all the paper cluttering everything. Hallelujah. And 8, I'll save time and eliminate stress searching for misplaced papers and documents. And that's something we could all use a little bit more of, is more time and less stress. Am I right? I don't see anything new in the chat now. That's okay. Let's move forward. So question number 5, you're going to ask yourself is what's causing the problems? Likely you have items that have no home. You have undefined goals and priorities because you haven't determined your why yet, and you haven't figured out what your true goal is, an actionable one. SMART goals. If you haven't heard of those, look those up. Insufficient or inconvenient storage might be causing your problem. And usually when it comes to that, it's not that you don't have enough storage. Even in my 880 square foot house, there were things that I could have done to make it more efficient. And honestly, there were things that I did tackle. And that was really my inspiration for starting this business and helping others with their transitions. Uninspirational space. I'm going to talk about that in some coming slides, and how not enjoying the space that you're working in terms of your paper processing can certainly cause you to just not be interested at all and close the door on it. a complex or confusing system is often part of the problem, just at least one part of the problem. Um, I will share an example that I'm thinking of now of a complex system, at least with my agenda. In years past, I wanted to be so super organized that every agenda item was color coded. And I used a different pen for whether it was a personal item, a business item, or what have you. And it just was too complicated. There's no need sometimes in being so detail oriented that it makes it difficult to accomplish. And then out of sight, out of mind. Some of us really need to take advantage of um, having things in plain sight so that we're not forgetting to do something. Some people don't like to use file cabinets because if they close that drawer on it, but there's a file in there of bills to pay or things to do, if they don't see it, it's not going to get done. And so if you're that person, finding ways to prevent that problem by having them in sight is going to help you. And again, we're going to cover that later on. Donna has too many boxes of piles in the closet, okay, and is running out of storage. Donna, I know you have great storage in your house. I have seen it. So you have options, but you have a hard time processing papers. Yes, don't we all? All right, thank you so much. Okay, so now tell me, do you have a paper processing system in place? Just tell me yes, no, somewhat, or again, what is a paper organizing system? I'll just give it a couple more seconds. Donna has no formal process. Evelyn says no. Okay. Somewhat is Mary's situation as well as Shirley's. Corinne's as well, but hers is not simple and convenient enough. Right. Very good. Well, let's get you guys there. Thanks, Stormy. You too. All right. So the simple fact is a good system shortens the road to the goal. So know your why and your goal, and then create a system to get there. All right, so we've passed that first section. And now that you've analyzed your current paper processing system, it's time to create a strategy to organize your papers and your zones. And at this point, you're really not beginning the paper sorting process at all. And I know what you're thinking. Nicole, why wouldn't you sort through your papers first so that you know how much space you need? And I would answer that with because you need to establish a space that works for your needs, not necessarily the paper that it will contain. So we're going to talk about each of these steps in more detail. Planning your zones, arranging or rearranging your furniture. That's something I've always enjoyed doing. Um, since a kid, I can remember drawing out my bedroom and asking my parents to rearrange my furniture based on my drawing. It's no wonder why I landed in the career that I am today and help my seniors have an impact on their move by planning their spaces in advance. But that's not what we're here for today. 3, stretching your space. And 4, estimating the time that it's going to take you to do all of this. Important to do that up front. When you plan your zones first, you're making a plan for where, what, and how you will store and maintain your organized documents. Planning your zones includes establishing activity zones and workstations for efficiency. Remember the family who homeschools and has their children using the space in which they use to handle their finances and paperwork. Keep often used supplies at an arm's reach in each zone. And if you share this space with family members, involve them in this planning stage. Some zones that you may create are your main work zone. You may store your files there, your computer, your paper, your pens, other office supplies. And here you could use a desktop, desk drawers, and a file cabinet. Maybe you'd have a creative zone where you would keep drawing supplies in a supply cabinet, craft materials in floor bins, and designs on a bulletin board. Your library could have books, reference materials, writing guides on the bookshelves. You could have a section for mailings and maybe store your envelopes, labels, stamps, notepads, and greeting cards in an armoire. A planning and scheduling station with a calendar could be stored on the wall. And really, your options are endless. It's all customizable based on your actual space. Next to the fun part, arranging and rearranging your furniture. Position your desk in an enjoyable way. Face a window versus the wall. I know the picture doesn't really show that, but if you see here in my office, I've got windows right here. I've got a door up front that I can see anyone, coming to my front door from. Um, use and this is so that I'm not just feeling so confined and stuck facing a wall. It really allows me to feel open and free to move around and honestly more focused on what I'm working on. Use a U shape, an L shape, a J, or even a triangular shape to achieve maximum storage and minimal space. I've got somewhat of a U going on here, and I am in a rolling chair, so anywhere that I need to go, I can go easily and come right back to my work zone. Use bookcases. They can store supplies, even files, and serve as dividers in dual purpose rooms. We do that a lot in great rooms for clients who are using a side as a den and using another side, for dining or whatever other purpose. Allow enough clearance in front of your supply and file cabinets to fully open the doors, the drawers, and access the contents. Next, stretch your space. Use an all-in-one desktop computer versus a traditional desktop with CPU. Um, Usually, another option is a laptop, of course, too, that is really capable of helping you work in any area. Store less used supplies in a nearby armoire, credenza, closet to remove them from your primary work area. Use vertical space by installing wall trays. I've got some here. Yes, it's kind of hard to point that out. Bulletin boards. I've got one of those too. Floating or standalone shelves, whiteboards, etc. Things that can get your often used items off of your desk onto the wall, really set up and organized for you to use it when you need it. And if space permits, again, place bookshelves back to back, again, instead of against the wall, and even acting as room dividers. Use the back of an office door to mount hooks or wall pockets for additional storage. We see that often in pantries or in crafting closets, but you can use them anywhere so long as you have a door. Use a rolling cart for convenient access to the items that you can wheel out of the way when not in use or easily transport to another location. Last is to estimate the time. Again, we're in the second phase here, and what we want to do is estimate the time that it's going to take before we start working. And the time that it takes to set up a working home office and paper processing system really depends on how much needs to be sorted through and how quickly you can make decisions, just like any other area of your home. But here are some averages that I have seen in my career. On average, it takes 4 to 8 hours to sort. Another 4 to 8 hours is what it could take to purge. assigning a home 2 to 4 hours, and then containerizing, and really customizing those homes that you've established, using drawer dividers, using the clear acrylic trays, the things that are going to help you have a place for everything. That could take you 6 to 8 hours in the average home office. If you are talking about a business, if you've got a home-based business, or if you're here today really thinking about your workplace, then the hours that it's going to take to do all of this tends to be on the higher end, and higher than these numbers here, oftentimes because it's not just you that's utilizing this space. And also, you may have an abundance of documents that you've saved, for clients, and, workflow processes with your team. And so, certainly, more people, more papers, it's going to take longer. And then maintaining it though, once you really go through this process, um, the process to maintain it is going to take you 15 to 30 minutes per day. It's like something we should all be doing too, is at the end of our work day, we are planning the day ahead, clearing our desk, making sure that we've completed everything we needed to so that we can focus on home, kids, you know, your personal life. And so if you set that goal and you set an expectation for how much time it's going to take you to accomplish it, you'll be more likely to hold yourself accountable. It's why I like to estimate the time in advance. And it's okay if it takes you longer, but treat it like an actual job. At work, you strive to excel and exceed your bosses or your clients' expectations, right? Treat this no other way, except you're doing it for you. Know the results that you will get from achieving your goal and get it done. How much time do you think it will take you to tackle your paper clutter? And be realistic with yourself. Give yourself room for error. Give yourself time for breaks. This is usually not a project that you can complete in one sitting. And so that's okay. Do you think it's going to take you a couple of days, or up to a week, several months? What do you think, as we've gone along here and you've really started analyzing and planning for your paper organizing project? Okay, so we've got several weeks and several months. Evelyn, you think it's just going to take under a week? Great. Donna, yes, great point. You think this is going to take you so long and you just put it off because it's an overwhelming project to say the least. And so, just a side note, if this is going to take you weeks or months, know that you've got to start somewhere. So if you've made your goal, you've arranged your space, you've set yourself up for success by giving that estimation of time and planning out what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. Maybe if you just took 15 to 30 minutes per day to tackle it. I mean, a lot of us on this call, and listening to the recording later, we lead busy lives. There's simply not enough time for everything that we want to do or need to do. It's understandably overwhelming, and it's why you shut the door on big projects, or messy rooms that you just don't want to see, because it's just it seems like an impossible feat. And so instead of putting it off, just tackle a little bit at a time. Okay. So now that you've planned your zones, you've arranged your furniture and space for efficiency, and you've estimated the time it will take you to sort and organize your paper documents, it's time to take action. So here's how to process the papers currently inspiring chaos in your home. It's what you're all here for today. We will sort, we will purge, we'll assign homes for and contain all the items. The most important step is the last one, and that is to maintain the organized paper processing system that you take the time to create. So starting with sorting, unless your current filing system is 75% effective as it is, I recommend starting from scratch. This is a much cleaner and faster way to work, and you'll have a clean slate when you're finished. So purchase a box of 100 manila file folders. Whether you need them all or not, go ahead and purchase them, a big box. Have a pencil or a permanent marker, maybe both. Have empty banker's boxes and your piles of papers. Go through every stack in your office, picking up each piece of paper, asking yourself, what is this? Why am I holding on to it? And under what circumstances would I look for it again? And write that first word or the phrase that pops into your head onto a manila folder. Slip the paper inside and move on to the next piece of paper. Use titles that incite you to action. Create invoice versus invoices to write. Pay bills versus bills due. Write thank yous versus letters to answer. Use titles that speak to your soul. Rainmaking versus business growth. Wealth versus financial planning. How boring, right? But wealth is so exciting. Fascinating people versus articles of interest. Who's going to read those articles of interest again? Place your completed folders on the floor. That's my favorite method. Or in your empty banker's boxes if you don't have a whole lot of floor space. This helps you to create the beginning of your brand new filing system. If you find a piece of paper in one of the piles for which a file already exists in one of your drawers, pull the file out, the folder file the paper inside, and integrate that old file directly into the new system that you're creating. Name the files in a way that will still make sense to you later on. Keep the title simple and the categories broad. The secret to quick retrieval is to have the fewest places to look for a given document. Again, remember, keep it simple, don't make it too complicated. Title the files based on retrieval, not storage. Where you would look for something if you needed it again. Often that's the subject, not the source. Use titles to group familiar files. So your bank statements, you may have multiple bank accounts, but you don't need to have a whole separate file for each bank account. Just keep it all in the bank statements category. When you're done with all of your file naming, reevaluate and refine your file names to keep your system simple. Do they make sense? Are they active? Do they invite you to look inside? Do you have files with duplicate names? Can they be more generalized and less complex? If so, consolidate, pick one title, and stick with it. Break down your thick folders into separate folders because the fewer folders that you have to look through to locate a piece of paper, the better. If you've got too many piles of file folders, chances are you've got way too many categories. See that see if you can group them into much broader categories, 3 to 5 tops. More than that will be too hard to remember, and it usually means your system is too complex. Here you'll see some example categories and what to store within each. So we've got financial, we've got vital records, we've got lifestyle, and all of the different categories that could go in each. And a more complete list will be in the upcoming blog post that covers this phase. So as you're going through, you might be taking pictures of some of these slides to remember them, but just note that everything is going to be detailed in the blog post. Note that miscellaneous is nowhere on this list. Do not use a MISC file. There will likely be a significant amount of papers you can purge to properly fit in the space you've created for the purpose of maintaining an organized space. I know you have questions about that on what you can let go of. You'll find documents with information you already know. You'll find items that contain outdated information. Stationery you no longer use, keep your favorites only. Old receipts and bank statements have likely piled up. Again, the upcoming blog post, it will also include a general guide for how long to keep these documents. An abundance of notes, schedules, to-do lists, those are also likely in your piles, some of which might have not gotten checked off yet. And if you've saved your college work, I assure you that you will never refer to it again. Your degree is the only thing you should save. Take it from the person who kept her college books for 18 years, then finally just had to recycle them because no one wanted the dated material. Time moves quickly, and we have so much information at our fingertips. Next, you'll get to assign a home for all the papers you sorted and kept. If you like your papers to be in plain sight but contained, we talked about this earlier, use binders on a shelf. I have an example of that right here. If you can see all of those binders, that's where a lot of my business files are kept. Tab dividers inside can help to maintain the files in an orderly fashion. And I am that person that doesn't do well with items out of sight. So I like them to be contained. I like them to be organized and colorful. I like it to inspire creativity and use. So I use tab dividers inside those binders, and that helps me to maintain the files in an organized and orderly fashion. If you will be using a file cabinet, assign each group of papers a specific drawer or a section of a drawer if you have a small file cabinet. Place the group that you use most frequently, for example, financial papers, in the top drawer for convenient access. Utilize a desk drawer for everyday used items such as sticky notes, page markers, rulers, paper clips, pens, an address book, your label maker, stapler, tape, notepads, a 3-hole punch. With my papers in a binder like that, a 3-hole punch is something that I use often. And so I have it right up front in the drawer here. So it's not in my face, taking space on my desk, but it's still easy to grab when I'm interested in using it. Utilize the space of a credenza or a closet to store lesser used items such as stationery, printer paper, empty file folders, and other supplies. I have a credenza on the other side of my office. Have a designated location for papers coming into your home that aren't being processed right away. At the very least, you should have an inbox per person that mail or tasks belong to. Never put your junk mail in your inbox. Recycle it right away unless you intend to do research and consider the service or product offering. I think it's something like 50,000 pieces of junk mail that we receive in our lifetimes. And that statistic was from years ago. So I'm sure that that has grown today. And then bills should have their own personal inbox and processing system. It's time to containerize. Wall trays are excellent for utilizing vertical wall space and getting things off your desk or work area. The ones that I use here are made by E to Z Pocket, and you can get them on Amazon or at Staples. Bulletin boards, they're old school, but they're helpful for to-dos and things you want to see right in front of you. So again, as a person who, when it's out of sight, out of mind, the things that I need to focus on, having them right there in my face on my bulletin board when I walk into my office is really helpful for me. Rolling carts can be helpful if you sometimes work at your desk and others while sitting in front of the TV in your living room or bedroom. Portable file boxes are good for the short term while the project is large, or for the long term when storing, excuse me. They're also good when there's no space for a file cabinet. They come in cardboard, plastic, rattan, wicker. They easily fit on a shelf and can be, again, either a temporary option or an attractive one for your bookshelf. Literature sorters and magazine racks can also go on your bookshelves. And they can be used for more than just literature and magazines. I use them for clipboards, page dividers, binder tab sheets, and more. Your in and out baskets and your letter trays. Again, each member of your household should have their own. Plus, you should have a built-in box for those statements that you're getting by mail, by snail mail. Choose an attractive option for sorting your mail and messages by person in your entryway, on a desk, or on a countertop location in your kitchen if you don't have an office. They too come in attractive options like rattan, wood, wicker, mesh, and so on. If others in your household will be using your system, make sure that they understand it. Explain the filing system, where bills should go, etc. So they'll be able to find it, one, and most importantly, two, put the items away where they belong. If you want to maintain control over the constant influx of household paper, you'll need to create a regular time to process it, just as you would in an office. Encourage your family's participation by assigning certain household paperwork duties to other family members. You may have a couple of children. One child may sort the daily mail into each person's inbox. Another might be responsible for keeping catalogs current, tossing out old ones. I'm not quite there yet. I have a 10-year-old and a 2-year-old, but start early if you can. The time you should set aside each day to process your mail, to make phone calls and handle your filing is at least 15 to 30 minutes. And again, if you do this daily, clutter is not going to pile up. Schedule 30 minutes at least weekly to handle your finances, especially if you don't have auto pay, paying your bills, or even budgeting and filing your statements. Have stamps and envelopes handy at your bill paying workstation. Plan to tune up your paper processing system in work areas at least once per year. Clean out your files, toss warranties, receipts, instructions for items you no longer own. Place the year's bank statements, receipts, and tax records in a 7-year rotating tax file. Make labels for any new files you created during the year, and pay special attention to your lifestyles file. If it's begun to bulge with items like recipes and articles of interest, vacation ideas, you name it, you thought you'd refer to these things or you considered buying but haven't, get rid of them. New paper enters our homes every day. The junk mail and other solicitations pile up quickly and easily become out of control. So create a process that works for you and your family. Teach them how to use it and follow through with the system that you create. You'll turn chaos to order and will never have to focus on downsizing your paper documents again. Otherwise, it won't take much effort or time to destroy the system you created. Make it worth the time and the effort that you're taking now to get your papers organized. Now, if you need any help going through this process or any other downsizing or organizing project, and you're here in the Central Florida area, meet the team that can help you reach your goals. I'm proud to say that it is these people right here that make all the magic happen. Our clients count on them to remove the overwhelm and handle all of the moving parts of their projects. It gives us so much satisfaction to be able to ease the stress and overwhelm of our clients' experience when downsizing and moving or getting organized. You can see this testimonial and many others on Google and Facebook. Find the blog at organizedhaven.com. There you'll find an abundance of moving, downsizing, and organizing tips that will be sure to give you all the guidance that you need. Find more information about us and our services by visiting organizedhaven.com. There you can contact us for a free estimate, and you can keep in contact with us too on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. You can find a professional organizer near you, for those of you who are not in the Central Florida area, at napo.net. That's NAPO.net. If you need a senior move manager, you can find one near you by going to nasm.org. So that's NASMM.org. Stay tuned for next scheduled webinars and blog posts by subscribing to our newsletter. You'll find that on the home page of our website. And you can watch past recorded webinars on our YouTube channel. That's also linked on our blog posts relating to our webinars and on our website. So let's open it up to questions. I'm going to check out the chat one more time. Do your clients have to be moving to get help from your team? Thank you, Donna. No, not at all. Again, where I started this company was in the realm of professional organizing, helping everyday people in their homes and their offices. And where it's led us, the bulk of our clients are seniors, they are downsizing, and they need more than a traditional moving company can provide. But our projects are so different, each and every one of them. There's no job quite the same. And so oftentimes we also work for busy professionals who aren't moving at all, just need to get organized in their space, whether it's just their paper or the entire house, just the garage, or their kids' bedrooms or their pantry and their kitchen. So no, to answer that question, you do not have to be moving to hire our help. Can you tell me more about uninspirational space? Corinne has asked. So I shared the example already of facing the wall whenever where you set up your desk in your office. That's one example of an uninspirational space. Another is just having too much clutter. There's a reason why we start with establishing zones and creating a space that makes you feel like keeping it organized and maintaining a system is going to be possible. So, if you have an office space and there's paper everywhere, there's boxes piled up, or an entire home in which there's things that don't belong in these rooms, a quick way to make it inspirational is to get those things out, relocate them. It doesn't mean you have to sort them right away, but get them out of the space so that you can clean it, keep it clear, and kind of bring things back in as you do your sorting. An uninspirational space may also be a room with no windows. Certainly that's kind of unavoidable if you have to work in that space, but maybe you can reconsider the types of things you do in that space or ways that you can bring additional light in. Maybe you get inspiration out of having greenery in your space. I've got a couple of plants in my office here, in my kitchen, and so that also makes me feel like I have brought a little bit of the outside in. Color is a great way to add some inspiration. These walls here used to be brown. They're paneling. They're the old wood paneling. My house was built in 1950. So when we first moved in here in 2019, the entire room was brown. The window trim was brown. The door trim was brown. Totally uninspirational. I felt like I couldn't even breathe in this space. And I was 7 months pregnant. So we had a lot of work to do to be able to have my party here in the house just in a couple of months. And painting was the first thing that we did, so that we really felt at home. And so bring in some color, bring in some greenery, bring in some lighting. Don't have it boring and have your desk against the wall if you can help it. Do those things that are going to help you enjoy the space. I hope that helped, Corinne. Mary says it's so hard to deal with inheriting a family member's hoard. It's difficult for her to throw her personal things away. Sure, you probably have some family heirlooms there. You may have had to get your family member moved quickly. And so instead of spending an exorbitant amount of money on storage units, you brought some things into your home. We actually had a client years ago, husband and wife, senior couple, who whose parents had both passed, and both of their families were antique business families. So can you imagine the amount of things they brought into their home? It was a large home, but it quickly became small because of all of the extra stuff that they weren't using, that they were just storing in the space that they wanted to be an organized haven. And so we completed not one, but two online estate sales to clear about 700 lots of their deceased parents' goods. So sure, sometimes you feel like you have no other option but to bring it into your house. And so Mary, personal phone call, I would love to have with you to see if we can figure out what you can do to get past that and move on to that next stage. So those questions were in the chat. There's one in the Q&A, it looks like. Assigning you our home means. Assigning your home. I'm not sure what you mean, Corinne. Can you elaborate a little bit in the chat? Maybe we already covered it. I figured it out afterwards, she says. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Corinne. Do we have another question that just loaded? No, okay, that was just the open question. Okay, so I'll say we answered that one live. Okay, so I hope that really helped. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us at 863-268-4041. If you want to talk with me directly, you'll dial extension 104. 101 will be if you have a project and you're here in Central Florida and you want our help with it. My client services manager, Dee, would be delighted to talk with you about that. Mary's going to call me today. Great. I look forward to talking with you. So again, stay tuned to our Facebook page. Go to organizedhaven.com and check out the blog. I believe by tomorrow, I'll have phase 1 of that posted. So refer to that if you want to avoid having to re-listen to all of this again or utilize whatever pictures you took. It will really go in detail and help set you up for success in downsizing your paper documents and turning chaos to order. So again, thank you so much for joining. We're just in time to end this webinar today. I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday and week. Happy 4th of July. I hope you have fun plans. Bye for now.